Hi there, good evening and welcome to your Sunday session here at This Is Ibrox for Sunday, the 21st of January. My name's Scott Patterson. If you're joining us across our YouTube and Facebook channels and our social media accounts, we appreciate you doing that. Lots to discuss tonight. You'll see from the headline tonight, Rangers are close to signing Mohamed Diomande. We will do a little bit about that. I've got two experts in the room tonight to give us their very best opinion on Diomande, which we'll get to. And we'll do a little bit about Abdallah Sima coming back from the AFCON via Senegal, of course, injured, disappointingly. And we will, of course, begin things by focusing on the Scottish Cup fourth round win yesterday. In fact, no, we'll just go straight into intros. It's John Walker and Reiss tonight. Reiss, how you doing?
Yeah, very well, mate. Glad to see Rangers back playing competitive football, and I think that winter break just about killed me, so glad to see the end of it.
And John Walker joins us again. Hi, John, how are you?
Aye, good, mate, good.
So, listen, before we get into it, a little bit on our social media. As I say, if you're watching us on YouTube and Facebook tonight, then we thank you for doing that. Don't forget to like and subscribe, strike the notification bell so you get a notification anytime that we release any chat or content, publish anything, you'll get a notification to see we are there. You'll be able to jump in and check it out. We're also available across all the other social media places, Instagram, TikTok, Threads. If you are looking to listen to us, if you're out sprinting, treadmilling it like John's doing, he says, you'll be able to fire up your Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. You'll be able to listen to us. We do, of course, have our Goal of the Month and Player of the Month that has just landed last week. So I'd urge you to jump on and have a wee listen to that if we can. Before we get into Dumbarton, John, draws just literally 20 minutes or so been made. And of course, we've got Ayr United at home on the weekend of the 10th and 11th of February. Before you go into whether that's a good draw or not, how good is Christian Daly looking?
Well, we won't go too far in it. The Lawrence Shankland derby, that'll be by the time United come to Ibrox. That'll be quite good.
Joking aside, home draw was really all you're looking for at this stage, isn't it?
It depends. I mean, on my direct debit, not so much, Scott. I'm quite happy to get a few away draws as long as they're winnable. But I'm thinking the direct debit will be out in the next hour if Rangers are keeping consistency. So,
Reiss, home tie, okay for you, buddy?
Yeah, definitely. I've just looked it up there, and it says Ayr United have not won their last 5 games, so should get us through to the next round, and then you just take it from there, game by game. Sound like Clement there, game by game.
I know, yeah, you've been listening to him clearly, which I like. You'll be able to bring some of that chatter tonight. Can't argue with that. Listen, one thing that I think is really important at this stage, if you've got, I don't want to say easier games, but games that you can manage properly. I've seen a graphic, I think, earlier on yesterday that Clement's got something like the range, was it 15 games in about 60 odd days or something like that are just going to come and come and come, of course, starting Wednesday with the trip to Easter Road when league action comes back to entertain us. John, I want to stay with you. I'll come with you first, rather. Dumbarton yesterday, probably the big headlines from the team perspective. Start for Robin McCrory. Ridvan is still included despite no one knowing where he's going to be this time in a fortnight. Raskin and Matondo all involved yesterday.
I know, I feel sorry for Ridvan. Like, we're hearing how homesick he is, and then we take him into Barton in that weather. You could have given the day off. Ridvan, I think it's just a case of see for as long as we have him and we are going to pay his wages, and if he wants out the door, we want to get as much money for him as possible. So see, the more he plays, he's been performing perfectly well. He's been one of our standouts at home games especially. See, as long as he keeps playing and keeps putting numbers in, his valuation goes up instead of stagnating or dropping and making it look like we want rid of him. I think it's a game of poker. I think it's kind of what Verona were doing with Josh Doig. Yeah. You keep playing him. You don't let anyone know that you're interested in letting him go. Every time you get asked a question, you say, unless our valuation's met, he's not going anywhere. Until somebody meets what we want for Ridvan, which should be our money back plus $1 million, as far as I'm concerned. I do think if he goes back to Turkey, especially, he's a really good player. I think the only thing letting him down is that he came to a country where physicality this isn't a pure dinosauric type mention when you're saying he's small. He's not physically strong either, though. He's small and not. It's not like Andy Robertson, where Andy Robertson, it's ludicrous. You let go of a 5'9" Andy Robertson. Andy Robertson's physically in people's faces all the time. Yeah. I think Ridvan does get kind of bullied a little bit on the deck as well. So He's just unlucky. It's a league. It doesn't massively suit him. But he'll go for. I would honestly be wanting $1 million plus on what we got for him. What we paid for him. Sorry.
Reiss, the one thing that I think we do have, and we've had it for a wee while now, is issues with wingers, which we know about. Matondo, of course, came in yesterday to start. He's probably one that I think as the next 6 months go on, to be honest with you, I think he'll be one that will edge closer towards the exit door come the summer, because we've just not seen it from him. Were you surprised to see him start yesterday, get some game time?
Not overly, to be honest, with the other options in the squad, but I thought it was good. I wanted more rotation, to be honest with you. I was surprised we kept our starting 11 on for as long as we did as well, but as you say with Matondo, I thought he'd done alright. I think as a team we kind of struggled the first 10 minutes to get into the game with the conditions and stuff. We had a bit of a shocking start, but once the first goal went in, you just knew it was all flying in. And Matondo was good in spells, but he's had enough chances now, I think, Matondo, that you know that he's never going to be that starting winger in a league-winning Rangers team. And I totally agree with you. I think within 6 to 12 months, he probably will be moved on. Actually, if we had anybody else in the squad that could play that position, I reckon he might be somebody that we tried to get a fee for this window in order to fund other signings, because it seems to be what we're doing with Ridvan now. But Matondo's there, and if he had anybody else backed up to him, then you probably would shift him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, it was interesting going into the tie. Obviously, the weather was rotten, and I think for the best part of the day, I think a lot of people were maybe expecting the game to be called off as the day progressed. There was a wee spell where it was actually okay. Pitch looked all right, perfectly playable. Game time comes and it looks pretty rotten, I have to say. Conditions were rotten. Fair play to the staff in and around Dumbarton to try and get that game on as a spectacle. From a chances perspective, from Rangers early doors, we had a chance from Dessers, needless to say, has 2 great chances inside the first 12 minutes, and Matondo has a sitter in the middle as well. I do want to go to an instant at 24 minutes at nothing each. Robbie McCrory makes a really good save from Michael Ruth. If that goes in, conditions, etc., everything could just play against you, John. How important do you think getting some game time from McCrory right now is in these in the cup competitions rather?
It's a weird one, right? Because you don't have the option. If a goalie gets injured, it's the next goalie. You can move your team around, or you can adjust your formation to try and fit something else in and make something else work. If your keeper is injured, you have to go to the next keeper and see if that keeper doesn't play. It's a keeper that's coming out the cold, and we've seen that how damaging that can actually be. I think McCrory. I've said this a couple of times. I think McCrory is the perfect number 2. I don't think he is actually, in hindsight, good enough to hold down that place. But he's probably a position that you can trust. Like, he's played in big games. He's been lucky. He's been fortunate with the COVID year that he played a huge European game in an old firm, kept clean sheets in both, won both games. That's a good habit to get into.
Yeah.
So as long as he can get in the team, because he'll play the United game as well, if the squad's all fresh. So it's a good habit to have somebody that you've lent on that's came in, won games. I know he didn't keep a clean sheet yesterday. Kept clean sheets, made saves. It does help, just in case. I don't think there'll be anything wrong with Jack Burton, fingers crossed, but it is our sports science department that's looking after these players, so I don't count on anything.
Reiss, I'm a big fan of Robbie McCrory, I have to say. I did think that he had a bit of an opportunity, I think, for this season, but I think when you come up and you see how well Butland's done, we've spoke regularly here in this Ibrox about how Jack Butland's sort of end of season reel is going to be something else. When you look at some of the critical saves he's pulled off, big saves, big moments, and we've had that previously with goalkeepers, namely Alan McGregor. Were you quite glad to see Robbie get an opportunity tomorrow, yesterday rather, just refresh himself a little bit?
Definitely. I think Robbie McCrory starts for 10 SPFL teams. I think he probably doesn't start for Celtic, doesn't start for us, but he probably gets into just with every other team in the league. Starting number 1. Hearts, arguably, but definitely the rest of them. But I think it's great to see that he's getting his opportunity, and it's getting to the point where I think Ollie is reluctantly going, for the sake of his own career, he's probably going to need to move on at some point. And as much as he's a great goalkeeper, like, McCrory's definitely good enough for the league. Probably to compete in Europe, although we've never seen him there. But Butland's a level above the league, so you take that option when you get it. It's like he's a quality that we wouldn't have expected to have, whereas McCrory's good, but Butland's above par, so you play him, and he's just unfortunate that he's in the one position where you're very rarely going to have an opportunity to come in for him.
Yeah, Cubby, watching on in YouTube tonight. Hi, Cubby, good evening. I had Robin McCrory man of the match for that save in the first half. It was a cracking save, and listen, at that point, really keeps us in it. CJM55 deals or agrees rather with you, Reiss. Only ever really good enough to be back up. Not to say you can't have a decent career elsewhere. And Paul, who watches us regularly, and I forgot about John McLaughlin. He could have been someone who came in involved yesterday as well, which of course wasn't. So, yeah, John McLaughlin, goodness me, the memories. Rangers took the lead 1-0, 35 minutes on the clock. It's a Todd Cantwell corner, front post knock on from John Suter, and big John Lundstrom, who is in the form of his life. There must be a contract up for grabs, John. He pops up at the back post and knocks it in. Couple of things. I think it's one of the few headers I think I've seen him score. It's his first goal of the season. Is he worth a new contract for you?
He's definitely hit that Peter Lovenkrands moment. A 6-month run down a contract and Peter Lovenkrands turned into Maradona. That's been a bit disheartening, because I do think Lundstrom's actually been good since Clement's came in. He said he needed more instruction. I don't think we really know what he gets paid. I know we keep saying the same Taunton. We know, I've seen a few rumours about it being a signing-on fee that was split over weekly wages and stuff, because that was what the preference was. I've seen loads of different scenarios and why he gets paid, what he gets paid. If it's John Lundstrom for 30 grand, no, I can't. There are better players available for less money that they would then allow you to go spend more wages on more critical positions. I think there's a lot of good footballers that can do what John Lundstrom does in our team. It's just within our squad we don't have them, or we don't have them available. There are players out there that you can get for less money that would have a longer career ahead of them at Rangers as well, and potentially have a sell-on value and less wages that you could go, because we need wingers and we need money to pay those wages for the types of wingers that we need to challenge in potentially Champions League next year.
Reiss, he is in good form just now, isn't he?
Yeah, he's been excellent since Clement came in. I think he's, at the start, he was one of those players that you automatically noticed he was a bit more upbeat, he looked more energetic, he was definitely more progressive with his passing. But that could be for a variety of factors, I think. As John says, it's definitely a case of opportunity cost. Like, he's a good player, you would keep him there if you could, but it has to sort of be on our terms, and I think now he's getting to the point in his career. And I think he couldn't have put himself in a worse position, to be honest. If you think about when John said, like, a poker game, he came out in the press and he's like, I love the club and I want to stay. Automatically, Rangers can be like, well, you want to stay, so you need to kind of come to our terms, sort of thing. Yeah. So I think he's definitely playing well. I just love to see a near post flick on at a corner. We've missed it since Joe Aribo went. He used to do it all the time. Aribo was always first man at attacking corners, and he was always the first man to clear a defending corner. And to see he's actually starting to make use of these things, and you would usually think it would be a lower down team relying on set pieces to score a goal, to be honest, but take the goals where you get them.
Do you know, it was interesting. It was clearly something that they had been working on. I think Lundstrom was interviewed by Viaplay post-match, and I think they said that, do you know what I mean, there was a request for him to try and get in the goal scoring card a bit more than he had been. It was a good goal. Reiss, I can't walk by this. Does your Uncle Hamish listen often?
I know. I'll take that, Hamish, but I don't have an Uncle Hamish.
Hamish Brown, cracking wee channel. Reiss in particular, a very grounded young man. Goodness me.
Great judge of character.
You clearly don't know Hamish, but we'll send the cash via PayPal or something like that, I suggest. Rangers took their second goal in the afternoon, evening rather, came a little bit later. James Tavernier, needless to say, with an assist, and it was Cyril Dessers with a dink over the Dumbarton goalkeeper. John, Dessers had to score one of those chances in the first half, didn't he?
It's unbelievable, mate. It doesn't even start to touch the sides as to just how. I mean, even that goal is poorly hit. It's a poor connection on a perfect cross. but what were you looking at? Maybe 7 shots in the first half?
Yeah, something like that it was, yeah.
I mean, that's mental to me. I seen a sting the other day as well. He scored 5 with his weak foot for us and 3 with his strong foot, and he's hit plenty of shots. And I look at the ones he's scoring with his left foot, barring that lovely little dink against Copenhagen in the friendly.
Yeah.
Livingston, scrappy goal. There's been a few like that. I just, honestly, if we had a clinical striker in front of that goal now, I honestly think we'd be seen as put 6, 7, 8 past teams in some games. And that's the only thing that's going to go against him. And Michael Stewart said something at half time that was meant to be a compliment to his mentality. But I think it's actually the problem with Dessa's mentality is he doesn't seem to get bothered by missing chances.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I listened to Ian Wright, who continually says he hated missing chances. And Ian Wright was one of the best goal scorers. And Michael Owen said the same thing. Good goal scorers, Chris Boyd, hate missed chances in training. Dessa's actually looks like the mentality of someone who doesn't get bogged down by missing chances, but doesn't put enough weight on himself to not miss the chances.
Aye. It's quite fair. I'm trying to remember what the stat. What I seen someone post a stat to say that has he not scored? He's scored in every competition he's played in this season for Rangers. Is that right? It's something along those lines.
Yep.
Which is just I loathe to criticise him. I know he's into double figures now, but yeah, ultimately we need better. It's as simple as that. Rangers on tour gets on. I feel sorry for the guy whose house was behind the stadium. Dessers and Matondo put 4 in his guy. What a ball collection the boy must have, to be fair.
See what the best bit was? He'd put 2 over the fence and then tried an overhead kick. And at that point you're sitting going, this guy really does not care, does he? He's just happy to have a go.
Do you know, you're absolutely right. Stevie Scotty, 19, is right. Put it this way, a proper striker in the game's done after 15 minutes, which John completely ties in with what you're trying to say. So we're getting at half time and we're 2-0 in, 2-0 up, looking quite good for it. Come out the second half. The second half, the weather never helped the football generally in the second half, of course, it never. Matondo had an effort where he travelled the length of the pitch right at the beginning of the second half. And Reiss, on 78 minutes, we get our 3rd goal of the afternoon via the penalty spot. Matondo is brought down. Soft for me. I don't know if you felt the same.
Aye, I'll be honest, I didn't think it was a penalty.
Yeah.
I thought that if VAR probably looks at it, it's probably not a penalty. I don't think it's a dive. He's kicked his ankle, but at first, you're looking at it going, he's went down in stages, it's kind of staggered, and it's probably no... It's like that old Chris Boyd saying about soft and hard ones. Like it's a soft penalty, but
That's a
in
penalty.
hindsight, it probably is a penalty. But at first look, you're going, nah, surely not. But I don't know. I'll take it. And you know, when Tav steps up, you just can't expect that it's going to be a goal and set us on our way.
You used to always hear this nonsense for fast footballers telling you that when they're moving at that speed, it only takes a little bit of contact to push you over, right? And I heard Thierry Henry. Thierry Henry's a footballer before you were born, Reiss, back in the olden days. There's a goal that Thierry Henry scored, and a lot of people remember this. A goal that Thierry Henry scored in a game he scored 4 against Leeds, and he's running clean through in goal. He's running for the halfway line, and Gary Kelly, the Leeds right back, deliberately kicks his heel and clips both feet together, and Thierry Henry still managed to fall over, dink the goalkeeper with his right foot and score. Robbie Matondo is not moving at Thierry Henry's pace. He's not touched anywhere near as much. And I'm just going, like, see if you're a player with confidence, why are you even feeling that and going down? You're still in control to hit that shot and have a shot at the goalkeeper. Yeah. Players like that, I just feel that that's a mentality problem for me. See the stuff like that when you're going down. Who did we get rid of? Sadiq did it in a semi-final. You're like, what? You might have maybe almost got touched. What are you doing in those scenarios where you're going, I'm good done. That was an open goal for Robbie Matondo to try and get a second goal in 2 games and have a wee bit of confidence about him and flying. And now we're discussing whether or not it was actually touched.
Didn't ask my question though. Did you think it was a penalty?
Nope.
Listen, neither did I. I thought it was soft, and for what it's worth, I have heard the argument that you refer to, John, when players are travelling at pace. There's a better chance of them being knocked over, which I get. I kind of, but he could have got a shot away. He could have got a goal for the afternoon. I don't understand that. I don't understand why why they don't, why they almost, I don't want to say they don't want to score, but what an opportunity to sort of maybe top up your bank balance in the week for a goal sort of bonus or something like that. I don't know. I didn't think it was a penalty personally, but we take it nonetheless. Dumbarton do score in the afternoon yesterday. Reiss, we give away a really silly, daft free kick. Good delivery for the Dumbarton right side. I think it might have been Orsay that delivered it. I'm not entirely sure. And it's the ex-Rangers kid, Matthew Shields, who puts it away with a really good header. You have to say it's a fantastic header. The thing that maybe is glaringly disappointing about that is maybe the position of Borna Barisic, who came on as a second half substitute. Dumbarton, I think, put out a reel via their official account today, and it was just basically the Dumbarton right winger, right midfielder, really running rings around Barisic. Barisic never got near him when he came on. So that's maybe the sort of blot on what was a relatively good afternoon race.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was always going to be another set piece, wasn't it? It was like it would just seem to have this knack for conceding for set pieces, but good to see that we've actually started evening it up a bit with scoring one. But it was a good header for Shields, I thought, and it was funny to see him playing. So I looked at the boy after he scored and I thought, I've seen him before, how do I know him? And then realised he had been with Rangers before, and I suppose he'll have enjoyed that one either way, whether he was a Rangers fan or not, or he just wants a bit of revenge on the club. But it's probably poor, but to have Dumbarton releasing a reel of how bad your left back's been tells you need a left back. And
bad times,
we all know the situation with that. So we need to shift one to bring one in, and then do we bring him in alone? Goes on forever.
And John, without asking you to sort of cover the Ridvan stuff that we spoke about at the start, if Ridvan does go, we're obviously left with Borna for the rest of the season unless we bring in someone. I don't have a huge issue with Borna. I just didn't think he looked that clever yesterday. I don't know if he just didn't fancy it with the wet. I just don't think he looked up to it yesterday.
I just don't know who comes on for the last 25 minutes of the game when he decides he can't be bothered playing anymore. That's my concern. That'll always be my concern, and that'll always be the thing that I come back at. Before I've called Borna Barisic a shite bag, but I've never seen him have a full game where he doesn't hold his calf or hold his hamstring or go down or need somebody to look at him. In that, and another thing, it just bothers me. It just irks me, and it irks everyone else because it looks like he's constantly trying to cop out of games. I don't even think it's big games because he does it in every game I've ever seen him play. He goes down and needs to come off for something. That's my concern with Borna Barisic. Borna Barisic won a title with us. Borna Barisic was part of our team that got to a European final. Borna Barisic is a good left back. I just don't think he's got it in him to be consistently left back number one every game between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, 100%. Reiss, goal number 4 of the afternoon is something that's very familiar that we've seen from Scott Wright before. Ross McCausland plays him through a really nice through ball, and I think it was Kieran who jumped into the WhatsApp and said, "This isn't Hampden," as Scott Wright blasted one into the back of the net. It was, of course, very similar to the goal he scored against Hearts in the cup final at Hampden. Scott Wright's second goal of the season, and it put us through effectively. Good to see guys like Scott Wright getting some game time, and I think from Clement's perspective, considering the news that we'll cover later on with Sima coming back injured from AFCON, it probably gives these guys some game time in the legs, and maybe looking ahead to some opportunities that are going to come on with all these games that are just coming up.
Definitely. I think I'm actually probably surprised, if not disappointed, that Scott Wright's not had more opportunities this season, especially with the lack of wingers we've got. And I think you see it in glimpses, and we've seen it kind of pre-season where he would play centre mid and just go on these mazy runs, and he's such a good ball progressor that I think he's got that ability to get you out of tight spaces, whether it's in the wing or in central. So I like Scott Wright personally, and good to see him get a goal. But at that point, I would have quite liked it to be one of the B team boys that got on. I was surprised that Rice, Devine, King weren't all chucked on. I don't know if King was definitely on the bench, but there was 3 of them. And just to get the 2 in, I think would have been better. But to see Scott Wright scoring will be good, especially with Sima injured. I
have to say, some of the guys are quite on form tonight. Rangers on tour comment, they saw the poor surface and thought he was at Hampden. And then Blue Nose John says that was Hampden's score, which is absolutely fair enough. So, in the next round, as I say, great stuff. Really, really pleased with that. Home tie to look forward to weekend of the 10th, 11th of February. If you're just joining us and you don't know, we have been drawn against the mighty Ayr United that weekend of the 10th, the 11th of February. Look forward to it. John, news broke this morning that we've basically we're on the verge of agreeing things. I might even be further along than that, to be perfectly honest with you. Mohamed Diomande from New Zealand, I think I've spelled that correct, Ivory Coast internationalist, I think under 23 level just now. Tell me everything you know about him. I know you're a big fan.
Yeah, no, I was, and I think the reason I shared the thread that I'd done before on Nordsjælland wasn't about the fact that I'd identified the player Rangers were going. I did that little bit because I was identifying players that I thought were going to go to the English Premier League in a couple of seasons via a PSV or Ajax, because that seemed to be the right route that they were all taking. So when I seen that rumour this morning, until I seen the second source, which was a really reliable source in Denmark, I thought it was absolute nonsense, because I have heard that Ajax and Feyenoord were both looking at him just now.
Okay.
So he was well outside what I thought we could have attracted. I think that should probably sum up where you're at. Nordsjælland have had Mohamed Kudus and Damsgaard, who's now at Brentford, go through their similar recruitment process. They've got Wright to Dream, which is in Ghana, which is an academy that tries to identify the best African talent, to put them in that academy, to get them to a level at 17, 18 years old, that they can then move them to Denmark and take the best ones. That's what they do with that academy. He's one of many that are in that team just now that were identified and are through that. Adam Nagalo from Burkina Faso has been linked to it by Leverkusen just now. Osman's a young boy just now. Nordsjælland are a very good place to be shopping, especially if somebody's in the last year of their contract, which this guy is. And that's why it's given us the time to go in and get at good value. Very tidy left foot midfielder. Reiss again, sorry mate, I'm going to exclude you here. Reminds me of Solomon Tari for Portsmouth many years ago.
What player he was.
Before this was even thought of as a human. But a very tidy left foot, good at driving forward with the ball. I think I've seen a lot of people, and I don't disagree, saying it almost kind of looks like a Kamara, a Evo hybrid of footballer.
Yeah.
They do kind of look very similar. He's way more aggressive than Kamara in a tackle. That aggression goes both ways, gets a lot of yellow cards in big games. So if you're a gambling person, next Old Firm, Diomande, yellow card. The game will be won by then, so don't worry about betting against Rangers players to get booked. Really likes to get into the box. I think I said that in one of my threads. Something we've not had, in my opinion, since Arfield left. An actual midfielder that will go beyond a striker when we're deep. He'll attack the box continually. He's good in the air. He seems to score a lot of headers, which I was surprised at looking at the video of him. Really strong left foot, really creative coming in off that right side. You could play him anywhere, to be honest. See, if you were with Tavernier on that side, you could probably play him in that same role Aribo used to accommodate for us. If you had Raskin, Lundstrom and Cantwell already there, you could maybe do that. And that, if he's fit just now, because I know there was an injury before, but this is a boy. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we do like to, if Lawrence Shankland's not the answer because he's 28 years old, we want a player we can sell for more money. Diamande's the player that fits what we would want our model to be, the Calvin Bassey model. You get players in for under 3 million who potentially could go for 15 million plus. That should be the model. This is one of these players, if they avoid injury, which is ironic as a Rangers fan even saying that out loud. If you can avoid injury and have a successful team that play in Europe and he tests himself, because one of the things I have noticed quite strongly, and that's something I always try and put in context, every level up they've went when they've started challenging the title and got to the championship playoff points in the Danish league, he's performed well against Copenhagen, Midtjylland. When they've went into Europe this year, he's performed well against Partizan Belgrade, Steaua Bucharest and Fenerbahce. He's raised his game every time he's been asked to, which I think is a good thing to come into a club like Rangers, because you are going to hit those big games and we need you to be a big game player. We can't have any passengers. He's someone that also, I think, if you've been plucked from Ivory Coast into an academy and moved away from your family to Denmark at 17 and succeeded pretty instantly in that, he's probably the type of player that can move country and not have the types of situation we've had with Ridvan, where they're homesick, missing family. You would suggest that this is somebody that we've looked at mentality as well, type of person he is. He could probably come to Scotland and be fine because he's lived in Denmark for that time. I think it almost feels like it's too perfect. I'm very surprised that we've been able to get him. I know it's not finalised yet, but I suspected that he would have moved to a bigger team than us, with all due respect.
John, I'm going to stay with you because one of the things you led with there was we obviously know that maybe Feyenoord and Ajax have been interested in him previously. What do you think possibly changes for a guy to maybe look at Feyenoord and maybe interest from the top leagues in Holland and Rangers suddenly trot by? Are we looking at potentially the effect of Niels Koppen and Clement being in charge over here and maybe trying to turn things over a little bit? Why all of a sudden is Rangers maybe an option for him that you can really sensibly think about?
I think it's putting that same thing in front of people that we put in front of Raskin, that we put in front of Cantwell, because they're all players. Those are still players. Even though Cantwell's an older player and has been at a higher level already, Cantwell's still looking to realistically use Rangers to prepare himself back to the English Premier League. I'd be surprised if that isn't his goal, put it that way. And Raskin, the same. There's a couple of players that have joined Celtic have said the exact same. We're okay with that now. We're quite accepting that to do that and be successful, you have to come to Rangers and be successful, by the way. So everyone wins. I think there's an element of that with Diomande. You go, our team is aging. You're a young midfielder that we've identified has been really important. Chances are don't promise anyone game time, but chances are you've said there is a real opportunity for you to come here and follow a Calvin Bassey, follow a Joe Aribo, follow. We can judge however we want how the Glenn Kamara thing ended. Glenn Kamara's went to a Leeds side who are performing very well.
Yeah.
So you can even tout Glenn Kamara as being another part of your transfer model of bringing people in, getting them to teams that are going to end up in the Premier League. That's what you do. You push these players and promise to these players that, okay, you might go to Ajax, you might make the same thing Kudus does, but if you come to Rangers, there's the same opportunity. That's what we should be doing with this constantly. And also, I guess with Brexit and any work permit issues with South American or African players, that we now know that Scotland seems to have a different work permit rule that can get you into the Premier League easier than England automatically can. So there might be some other clever ways of working this. But either way, I'm very excited. I think it's somehow managed to get like a really good footballer joining Rangers. And I think joining that with Fabio Silva, I think so far, so good. I think it's just the timing that's bothering us a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. Reiss, when I saw the story this morning, and I think this, when I see players generally linked with moves to Britain that are playing in Scandinavia, I often think of yourself, because I know that it's a sort of an area that you follow from a footballing perspective, I'm certainly sure. You must have been quite pleased to see us linked with this chap this morning, were you not?
Yeah, definitely. I've said for a while I love the Danish Superliga. I think there's a reason that so many Premier League teams have got feeder clubs there. Could be work permit reasons, but they've bred talent out there for years. You've got Brighton, I'm sure Brentford have got one. There was talk of Chelsea getting one. There's definitely a few out there, at least anyway. And it's good to see that we've competed against these teams in Europe, so he's not a bad team. He's playing at a team that are usually quite high in their league, so he's used to winning football rather than being maybe a Cifuentes playing at LA, who they started winning last year, but America is quite passive. So he's good. It's good that he's getting integrated into European football, and it looks a quality signing for me. Off the face of it anyway, he's definitely better than what we've got. I don't know the fee or anything. I can't quite remember the fee or the situation with it, but what would worry me, and I don't know, John, if you've got any clarification on this, but he's barely been in the squad since the 22nd of October. He seemed to be playing dead consistent, and then he was on the bench, played 70 minutes, not in the squad twice, 60 minutes, not in the squad. Played 110 minutes in like their championship round, first game, and then not in the squad for the rest of it till the end of the season. So I just wonder, there's something about it that makes you go, why are they letting go of such a good player? But definitely a market that I'd like to see show up on more. I think there's definitely players in there. I've touted a few in the chat, like Alexander Lind, that I'd like to see us go for. I wanted Anton Gay for Rangers, and I said he would be my Tav replacement. He's subsequently went to Ajax, so John's definitely on the right track with that common move. So I think it's definitely a market that's got talent in it. It's cheap talent that we could probably get from there, bring them in, and develop them, just get them closer to England, basically, as John was saying. And I'm looking forward to it.
Do you know, I think there's something about, and I'm going to come back to something that John said shortly when we discussed about how far we are into January, and everyone's bottom's making buttons a little bit because we've not done anything, myself included, I have to say. There's something a little bit exciting about going to a league in Scandinavia in this case and picking a player that's clearly quite highly rated, John, and bringing him over. I sort of doubt your knowledge if he has been sort of tracked by clubs across Europe with a view of maybe going there before going to where the sort of land of milk and honey is down south. I think it's a signing that we can afford to be really excited about. What does it mean for maybe guys in existing positions at the club? We've mentioned Cifuentes. You look at Kieran Dowell, who I think's been mentioned in the comments there. Ryan Jack, of course, can speak to anyone now if he wants to. Same with Lundstrom. The only one that really is in that position of centre mid who you know is going to be there for the foreseeable is Nico Raskin.
Yeah, and I actually think that's... We don't really know. I think Ryan Jack's time at Rangers is up, unfortunately. I really like Ryan Jack, but you cannot give somebody a contract, and pay as you play, nobody's going to accept. He'll find a contract to somebody who'll give him a 2-year deal or at least a year deal. Ryan Jack can't stay at Rangers. The only way Ryan Jack could possibly stay at Rangers if he's available for every squad between now and the end of the season, and he's no signed a contract with someone else. Lundstrom, I think, will be wage dependent. Like I said, I would rather split that money over two or three average squad players or one marquee player that I think can do more than Lundstrom can. You've got Cantwell there already who can play deeper, but we don't really want him to. I think that's where Diomande probably comes in to fill maybe the uncertainty around Tom Lawrence and how available he's ever going to be as a Rangers player, because we can say he's back now, but until Tom Lawrence is in, like, similar to Jack, in 10 squads, I don't know what I'm going to see from him. So Diomande could be the Diomande, Raskin, Cantwell in games where we're going to dominate most of the football and keep the ball ticking over. We don't really need a workhorse like a Lundstrom in there. I think you could do Diomande, Raskin, Cantwell in home games especially, because I think Raskin's got, although he likes to get forward, he's got plenty of defensive capabilities in there as well. And I know he does like to tuck that other fullback in when the other one goes. So the comfort's there. I think it would be looking to, if we can't get something sorted for Lundstrom, if we decide that Jack and Lawrence, we need to get rid of Lawrence, can't keep Jack, it probably covers our bases going forward and says we've got a good young midfielder who we expect to have for a year and a half, 2 years that we could then sell on as well. And that could be my God, see if you could get those three playing together regularly. The biggest problem I think you could have is you could have all three of them being sold at some point for good money.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And that would mean we've done our job. So I'd be quite happy.
Yeah, that's it. Bisgrove will be happy, won't he, as you say. Listen, Paul McGarrigle sort of jumps in, and I think you answered this question there. Does John think that Diomande and Raskin would be a good midfield as a two? I think I'm hearing you say that would be something they look forward to and be quite excited about.
I think Raskin, I would have Raskin sitting more like 2-8s with Cantwell and Diomande in front of him.
Wow. Well, we can't but hope. It's an exciting one to be linked with. Reiss, obviously, you mentioned Lind, so it's obviously a deal, an area that you hope we maybe go back to geographically and maybe study that area a bit better. I just wonder if you think maybe the addition of Coppin is going to maybe assist with that sort of for the remaining, 10 days of this January window.
I hope so. I was lucky enough to bump into him today, funnily enough. But I think that it'll be interesting to see how it goes. It probably speaks to what John said, that Feyenoord were interested in him, seeing as he was Feyenoord's head of global scouting or whatever it was. Yeah. That it probably is true that they were interested in him. And Feyenoord are a team that if we came up against in Europe, you would probably expect us to get beaten now. In all truth. Not if we hit a good Rangers side, you think beat them and have beaten them. But they're a good side, and if they're looking for him to come in and add quality to their squad, then it can only be good for us. And I hope it is somewhere that he tends to look at, because I think there's diamonds in the rough there. I think that another bonus it is, and it's why I quite like players from Norway as well, that the weather conditions out there. See, like, if you've got guys that are just about playing in freezing conditions out there, you bring them to the likes of Dumbarton yesterday. Maybe the wind's a bit exceptional, but you bring them to Scotland December, January normally, and they're not really that flustered. Whereas you look at guys like Cifuentes, who's come from Ecuador to LA to Glasgow, that's an adaptation, whether we like it or not. He's said as much in interviews that they were like, oh, how are you finding Glasgow? And his one word answer was cold. And you thought, right, so you automatically tense up when you're playing. It's harder to be fluid in your movement. You go rigid. I think these guys playing in Scandinavia aren't going to need that adaptation. They're used to weather like that. It's just an underrated thing I like, and they're good enough players added into the bargain. So to be able to pick up wee cheap deals here and there, especially in the teams that aren't already linked to Premier League teams, I think it's a no-brainer for me, especially if they're better than what you've got at the minute, which Diomande definitely is.
Do you know, it's interesting that you talk about Cifuentes. I can't remember what game it was, but it was a midweek game and it was freezing. And I remember looking at him run around, and he looked thoroughly miserable. And then you remember where he came from, and you kind of think, wow, I can understand why you're maybe less than amused having to run about, wondering where your gloves are, just understanding exactly how cold it is in deepest, darkest Govan. So,
the one that amazes me though was Morelos. He came to Colombia to Finland to Glasgow. I was like, that's an adaptation, isn't it? Colombia to Finland. It's
the making of a man, isn't it? Goodness me, Alfredo.
No wonder he was raging.
Reiss, I'm going to stick with you. Obviously, news came out yesterday, just before. I think was it before the game, during the game? I'm not entirely sure. But it became apparent that Senegal had sent Abdallah Sima away from AFCON with an injury. I believe that, I don't have the quote in front of me, but I referred to him being unavailable for almost a significant period of time. Bit of a blow that, because his form prior to going to AFCON was really good, and everyone at that point continues to, or begins rather, to speak about permanent deals at $6+ million. I think that's a different debate, maybe for another podcast, but it's a blow if he's going to come back injured and be missing for a period of time now, isn't it?
Definitely. I think Sima's been our outball this season. If you need to go long, he's the one you hit. Yeah. If you're putting a cross in, you're the one that he's hoping's in the box. If you're stuck in a tight situation, you're the one he's hoping's get the ball. He seems to kind of do a wee bit of everything for us, and to be missing that without probably a replacement anywhere near as good is quite a worrying thing. Although it's interesting to know that Fabio Silva likes playing off there, and he thinks it's actually one of his more favoured positions rather than up front. So it'll be interesting to see if he gets a shot there. But it's never nice to see a player get injured, especially one of your better players. And personally, during the game, I was kind of hoping that it was getting sat on the bench here. I'll just say I'm injured and go back over. So there's still part of me hoping that's true. So he's maybe just coming back. Man, I'm sitting on the bench here and not doing it. Nah, don't fancy this. See you later on.
John, one of the things that the boss said post-match yesterday was he was referring to my medical staff will assess Abdallah Sima when he gets back. I think there's been some sort of misleading stories, some saying he's out for longer than what he is. I see someone in the chat, I think it's Kenneth Elliott. Hi Kenneth, watching us on YouTube, out for 6 weeks. Maybe about that, depending on the severity of the injury. I come back to what I say, John. It's a big blow with so many big games to come, and the reintroduction of the Europa League 6 or so weeks away.
Yeah, I mean, see Rush's point, see if I hadn't seen Umar Sadiq be sent back for a long-term injury from his squad and then play for Sociedad in their first available game,
yeah,
I wouldn't have thought anything of it. But there has been a little pattern of a lot of these squad players at AFCON disappearing from their squads and appearing.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Coming back.
I mean, they've all appeared in the lineups this week. There's been 4 of them. Umar Sadiq was the most famous one because he arrived back in Spain and played the Copa del Rey midweek after being told he wasn't fit enough to play at the AFCON tournament. So that doesn't mean there's anything to do with that with Sima, but it has happened to 4 players now, and one very notable one. Sima being out would be huge for us. I just don't see. I like Silva. I like what I've seen of him. I know he's not up to match sharpness, so the fact that I like what I see is probably a good sign because we've seen what we thought of Sima early on.
Yeah,
I do not believe Silva can do what Sima has done for us. I believe without Sima in the team, as Reiss says, we don't have the outball. which means you start to look at how that old firm looked, hitting balls up to Dessers and McCausland when Sima wasn't quite on it. And it was just coming back, and it started to make us look a bit like a long ball team, which we looked against Copenhagen a little bit without Sima there in that friendly. That's my only concern, is if you're going to want to play that ball, when you're playing it to Sima, it looks like a plan. When you don't have Sima, it just looks like you're just a direct football team, which I don't really get. So I think there's a lot riding on how bad Sima's injury is. I really hope it's nothing. I really hope it's a couple of weeks and he's back and it's been over-egged. Because a couple of weeks would be enough for him to be out in the AFCON. Aye. So if they have said realistically, you might only be back training in a week and a half, 2 weeks' time, you're not going to be playing for us in the AFCON. We only semi-finals and finals left before there. Away you go home. That's kind of what it feels like. So fingers crossed it's nothing severe, but I just don't see how we... Oh God, I don't see how we make up for Sima not being available.
Do you know, it's interesting because when players obviously miss out, it often, or it does inevitably open the door for someone else to come in. We spoke about Matondo earlier on. Kyle Waddle, watching on YouTube, suggests if Sima is out, it'll give Matondo to get an opportunity to get a run at games. Last night, McCausland went and played some time on the left-hand side. Clement clearly looking to see if he can do anything over there, which I think is quite helpful. It's great to know that we've got that depth. He's been so important for us, Reiss, to be without him for a period of time now would be a bit of a blow. And I think it also makes the conversation that we'll move into next, which I'll lead with you, what still needs to happen between now and the end of January for this transfer window to be a success?
A striker, 100%. A striker. Assuming that probably needs somebody moved on, presuming Ridvan, then you need a replacement for Ridvan if he goes, because you're not going, as John said earlier, with Borna Barisic every game for 90 minutes at the end of the season. And I personally don't trust Adam Devine at left back. I don't trust sound a bit weird there, but I don't rate him as highly as I do at right back at left back. But potentially a replacement left back, definitely a striker, possibly a winger that can play on either side or one or the other. If McCausland can play on the left, then fair enough, but you really need to start at that point getting into Philippe Clement sees these guys day in, day out. Does he think McCausland can play on the left?
100%.
If not, then it's a left winger you get. But if he thinks McCausland's good enough on the left, then you get a right. So it's just got to be, where do we need? If you look at guys like Jack, how much do you trust him to be available? Is he going to be available? How much do you rate Cifuentes? Do you think he's going to come back and turn into be a player? Because otherwise, you possibly get shifting before the MLS season starts.
Yeah.
And we'll just wait and see. But the striker's definitely the most pressing one, as somebody said in the chat earlier, and I think we've kind of got to in this conversation, that a good striker puts that game away within the first 20 minutes. So it's just a case of a striker and probably a replacement left back for me.
John, same question to you, and the answer can't be Lawrence Shankland.
I'm hoping it's somebody that I've not even seen identified. That's Lind would be good. I'm kind of on that train a little bit now. For value, I believe he's probably somebody that can fit the bill. He will fit the bill better than Dessers.
Yeah.
I've got as much as I can relate to Danilo's work ethic and just pestering of defenders and getting in those positions. He's just another one that does not convince me in front of goal. So we've signed two strikers that do not convince me in front of goal, and it's the last bit this team don't seem to be able to do clinically.
Yeah,
Lind would do it better than those two, but you know where my eggs are laid. They're very much in the Shankland train. I don't think there's anyone else available that knows the league, that scores the goals, that gets the goals. I just hope he gets over his bug very soon.
Yeah, well said. Listen, it's interesting though. We began with Ridvan. We spoke about Ridvan, where he was potentially going to go. If he does go, and I think Paul McGarrigle, and we watch this regularly, referred to the chap Small, who's been linked with us. If Ridvan does go, there's obviously a gap at left back. How I find it really frustrating that the left back chat has went on to the 21st of January. Now it's went really quiet just now. I don't know if that means that everyone's sorted out their left backs and the wee fella isn't needed anymore, or we're going to see that maybe change as the week passes. John, is there any left backs that jump into your mind that could come in 6-month loan? We now know that it can't, of course, be Owen Beck because he came off the bench for Liverpool today, so he's bust. There's no one that I think jumps out as an emergency cover left back, because I think Barisic is going to be the boy.
No, that is a concern for me. I don't know who you go and jump to now. Josh Doig was never realistic. We inquired and found out the valuation. That was off the table right away. So we knew that pretty early on. Owen Beck, I thought, was somebody. I mean, all the rumours seem to suggest we did ask the minute he got sent back. Was there an opportunity to do something? I know we were linked with Jurasek. I think we're getting dangerously close to being kind of stuck. And that's what would concern me. By all means, they might have somebody up their sleeve. When I was watching a lot of Nordsjælland's clips earlier on to get the footage, their left back's really tidy. He's not young though. He's 26. So that would be a stopgap. I don't think they would sell the left back because the valuation for what they've got to keep him for the season probably doesn't make any sense to them. But there's no left backs maybe other than Small. I get concerned that it would be. It's almost hard to say no if somebody came and offered 4.5 million for Ridvan to get that money in and just gamble with Barisic, because I think your fallback's actually Sterling moving out to there and just accepting that you've got a right-footed. I mean, Peter Ferry came on against Hearts and was fine in there, but it's just something about the way Clement plays, especially. You're kind of stopping somebody going round the winger and getting crosses in because he's going to have to come back 9 times out of 10. But I think that might end up be where we go. He might look at it and go, if we had a defensive Dijon Sterling in there, we would maybe just need to rely on Tav pushing further forward more. As long as we've got the right attackers, we might get away with it. Yeah, I'm struggling to see where the left back problem gets solved. And I imagine that's where most of the time's getting spent just now, to be honest, which is concerning because I know a lot of us have said that in the chat, is we need a centre forward. The left back we can deal with. We need a centre forward, but I think there will be a lot of panic around what does happen, because I reckon if Borna was to sign a pre-contract with somebody, that hamstring would look very, very tight very quickly.
and that's precisely the point I'm sort of trying to make. Ridvan disappears, Borna signs up to go home. It's a real quandary I think Clement could find himself in. As I say, with 10 days to go, Reiss, we've only got maybe 5 minutes left to go. If we end this transfer window, and I know there's games to come, there's bits and pieces to come, but we are going to go into Hibs without bringing in a striker, I would suggest, by the looks of things. If we do end the January transfer window, bringing in Silva and potentially Diomande, we happy with that, or are we really quite disappointed? Considering we know what we're going for now, we know that there's a league to be won, we know that we're right in there, we know that there's an opportunity for us. I think you're really disappointed if he doesn't get the opportunity to enhance things a bit better.
Absolutely, you would be fuming if that's how you end the window. To put it in, absolutely no doubt, it would be a failing of a manager, I would go as far to say. I think that you're setting the guy up to fail, especially when the league's there to be won. The gap's not massive. It's by far and away not a foregone conclusion. So to be almost surrendering it at this point, it would be an absolute failing of a manager, and it would probably throw back in the face of Philippe Clement knocking back other clubs' offers to come to Rangers. I would go as far as saying that, and it's just something you really hope doesn't happen. And because I think it will cause probably anger between the fans and the board more than anything else. So that's obviously a situation you never want to happen. And all the work that they've done since the change at boardroom level so far will very quickly mean nothing. Like fan engagement, having CEO meetings and moving fans' stands and stuff to accommodate them means absolutely nothing if there's not a winning Rangers team in the park. So I think that's what it comes down to. But so you forgot to mention our wee bet for the end of the season between
I forgot
the
that bit, and then you
possible
tell me when I
remaining
bet.
strikers. So me and Scott have wagered whichever one of us loses will make a donation to a charity of the other's choice.
Yeah.
Scott reckons Dessers outscores Sima by the end of the season.
No, Silva.
Scott
Silva.
reckons, yeah. Close call there. Scott reckons Dessers outscores Fabio Silva by the end of the season. And I said, all right, I'll back Fabio Silva to outscore Dessers, and the loser has to donate to a charity of the other's choice.
Look at John Walker TikToking it, trying to work out if that's actually achievable or not.
From now? Is it like the Dessers goals to date count?
From now, so from when Silva arrived, so Dessers is already winning.
Right. Okay.
What do you think?
I mean, I hope Dessers has scored as many goals as he's going to, because he's not going to play. Let's start there. I'm just not convinced Silva's. I don't think I've seen Silva play regular enough for anyone to judge if he is actually somebody that can score goals. Because in the youth leagues, when he was playing off the left and centrally, he did score a lot of goals in his age groups continually. Running out of games, man. I get laughed off for saying I thought Shanklin would score 15 goals for Rangers if he came. You're talking those kind of numbers. I don't know. I can see Silva being stuck off the left a little bit actually because of the Sima situation. It'll all depend. I just don't see Silva as an out-and-out goal scorer.
I really think there's a good chance Reiss is going to have to put his hand in his pocket, which I am very, very delighted about. And a charity of my choice will be absolutely delighted with the cash, Reiss. I will make sure that happens. And you're a man of your will, as your Uncle Hamish said earlier on in the chat. Everything will be okay. Listen, John, I'll come back to you. It's been really good having you on, buddy. I appreciate your insight as per. Thank you.
No, thanks very much. Really enjoyable.
And Reiss, always good to have you on again, my friend. Well done. Good to see you.
Cheers, mate. Thanks so much. Enjoyed it.
So don't forget, if you are following us across our social media, particularly on YouTube, follow us, like us, subscribe us, hit the notification bell, and you will get a wee note each time we publish anything. And it will be absolutely worth tuning in for, I'm sure of that. Don't forget, if you're looking at us across anywhere you get your podcast from an audio perspective, we're on there now with some additional shows. We've got the Goal of the Month and the Player of the Month for January, maybe end of December. Can't honestly remember, but it's on there. Jump on, have a look, leave your comments. Always good to hear from you guys. The guys are back post-match on Wednesday after Hibs. Hopefully we have lots of things to be excited about and another 3 points in the bag. Thanks for watching. Goodbye for now. Bye-bye.